entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals who seek excellence, bringing the business classroom to you. It's the Business Builders Show. Here's Marty Wolf.
We still got a long way to go. Yes, we all got a long way to go.
Welcome to the Business Builders Show with Marty Wolf, the show for entrepreneurs, business owners, and business leaders. I'm Marty Wolf, your host for the Business Builders Show, and along with my executive producer, D.C. Taylor, and today my co-host, J. Kelly Hoey, we will be your guides on this learning journey. Let me tell you my super objective in being with you today. I want to enthusiastically share stories and information to inspire leaders. That's you, by the way, so you can inspire others. My guest with me today, Kelly's and my guest today, is Jules Pieri. Hi, Jules. How are you?
Hi, Marty. Hi, Jay Kelly. I'm great.
Wow. Let me give a very brief introduction, and we'll get into more details on her background, on our company's background, etc., as we discuss things. But Jules Pieri is co-founder and CEO of the Grommet, a site that has launched more than 2,000 consumer products since 2008. And she has written a great book, of which we're going to spend most of our time on today. The title of the book is How We Make Stuff Now, Turn Ideas into Products That Build Successful Businesses. I'd like to read that subtitle again. Turn Ideas into Products That Build Successful Businesses. Jules, again, welcome to the Business Builders Show. And here's my first question. What was the problem the Grommet set out to fix? Talk to me about that.
Pure and simple, the best products, the best innovations come from small businesses, but it's been getting harder and harder for them to reach the market, to find an audience, to be deemed as credible, because retail got really consolidated into a lot of big stores as opposed to the mom and pops and regional chains that used to exist. So we wanted to help them build a community, shine a spotlight on them, and help to surface quality products and help them succeed.
Why did that happen? Or why is that happening? Why is the maker space grown so much? What's happening in our world today?
It's primarily a technology story, frankly. If you think about why did all the software companies get born, the Facebooks, the Googles, et cetera, it's actually a really simple human driver behind that. It was that software, the tools to write software became cheap and accessible, and creative people will always go to the tools, the exciting new tools. Well, the exact same thing is happening for physical products in that it used to be just a big company game to do that professionally. But between the internet alone, allowing a person who really has no idea how to create a product to start to figure out some of the key components of that, whether it's finding a designer or doing market research. The internet is their friend. And then the physical creation has gotten easier because of things like 3D printing and laser cutting. So you can prototype more easily and make it real faster and better. And then crowdfunding came along a little bit later than the things I just said, but it's become really important too, because that first campaign that many people do is like a loan against your first inventory run, which is the hardest run to finance. So there became, I could see forming an explosion of exciting new products forming, like we've never seen before from unexpected sources. But the retail trend I mentioned earlier was an opposite, an opposing force, because let me tell you a story. When I worked at Play School, I even saw this happening. We big company, we had plenty of ability to get products to market, you would think, but I noticed our best products were not making it to market. And it didn't make sense to me. I wasn't there very long, and I saw our product line shrinking, and I asked my boss, who's Meg Whitman, now the famous Meg Whitman, but she was CEO of Play School at the time, not as well known. And she said, if Kmart, Target, Toys R Us, or Walmart don't want it, we can't make it. And she was referring to the fact that we used to be able to place our new products in the smaller chains, in the mom and pops, in the local stores. And those are the retailers who take all the risks. Their lifeblood is new products. And the toy industry was losing that level of distribution, and it was hurting even our big company. So that was a while ago. This was happening in the 90s. Fast forward to to where we are today, or 10 years ago, and we started the company. Retail was fixed at pretty large formats, very risk averse, really just want to buy kind of what they bought last year with the twist.
Right.
And then all these new companies were showing up that needed a spotlight.
Yeah, well, the big companies are risk averse. They kind of want a sure thing. They're not going to put all their resources behind everything. And I think you or someone you quote in the book calls it the third revolution. Web meets manufacturing, right? I love that thought process, right?
You know who you're quoting actually is a pretty prominent thought leader, Chris Anderson. He started Wired magazine, and he really created the idea of the long tail of content that had a lot of influence on Amazon and Netflix, and now he's behind TED Talks. So he wrote a book related to this third industrial revolution and the maker movement.
Exactly. So let's tell us about your co-founder. And you mentioned one experience you had before you started the Grommet, but tell us about your co-founder and what experiences you both had, I guess, kind of get you ready to start the Grommet. What did that look like?
So we met, again, back in the 90s when she was vice president of product development at Keds, the shoe company. I came in to run licensing, so basically lending our brand to other companies. And we both worked for the person I mentioned earlier, Meg Whitman, and we became respectful of each other as colleagues. I admired her work ethic and her relentless defense of quality on behalf of our customers. Mm-hmm. No shoe got by her that wasn't worth the Keds brand. And I admired how she defended the company in terms of it being a good citizen in the world and in her own behavior and the way she expected her team to behave. And so there's that backdrop, right, of like tremendous respect. I became useful to her, I would say, because I was kind of a cool hunter in the company. It was a side job I did on top of my licensing job. I'm an industrial designer, so I tend to see trends forming. I was always paid to sort of, a designer learns that as part of their profession. So I was helpful to her in finding potential new big product line ideas. So we worked together on that basis. And then we both, along the way, had 3 sons in relatively the same time frame, and we ended up sharing a nanny for part of our professional careers.
This is really a close relationship, for goodness sakes. It
became that, yeah. And I have to say, when you're co-founding a company, it's about as tight a relationship as a marriage. Right. Oddly enough, you spend more time with that person probably than you do with your spouse during the company. And so I knew what she was made of. And when I called her, I guess she figured she knew what I was made of because she answered the call.
I feel that way about my co-host, J. Kelly Hoey. Not that we shared a number of kids or anything like that, but the trust and the relationship is very positive. Did we mention her name, Joanne, and how do you pronounce her last name?
Oh, sorry, Joanne Domeniconi. Yeah. And we were orienting some new employees yesterday, and I told the employees, you probably won't see us in the room very often. And once same room, sorry. And once a new employee thought we didn't like each other or something, and I said, no, this is what trust looks like. If she's in the room making a decision, I don't need to be there, and vice versa.
I think one of the questions you should always ask is, can they pronounce both of your last names correctly? And then if they can, then they should be considered. So let's talk about the book. How we make stuff now, turn ideas into products that build successful businesses. So kind of give me the overview. We're talking about some things in it, but kind of give me the overview. And why were you compelled to write it?
So we over the course, now it's almost 3,000 products that we've launched over 10 years. And we've launched some pretty big ones like Fitbit, SodaStream, OtterBox. Some people know and love Bananagram. So many household names, Swell water bottles. We watched how all those companies, and even in the ones I mentioned, in the beginning are figuring it out. And they The minute they launch their product, or the minute they have a viable product, then they're competing directly with the big guys, and they need to be good to great at 16 different competencies, ranging from protecting their intellectual property to creating packaging to logistics to financing to marketing. And they're all doing it by themselves. And I've, over the years, been able to observe how they solve these problems and how they help each other. And so this book is essentially a give back. It's a how-to book for those next generation of makers to hopefully help them get to the top of the class on the areas where they might be struggling or they're encountering problems they've never seen before. I'm giving them all the best advice I could possibly give them because 3,000 companies have taught us this. So it's super snackable. You know, you can read any chapter in any order because you might be worried about packaging one day and you might be worried about I don't know, how to prototype a different day. So that it's written to be read however you need it to be read. Lots of case studies from our makers. So it's a give back. And then, you know, if there's any selfish motive, it's that I hope the next generation of makers who come to us will be just a little bit further along because they read the book.
That makes sense. My guest is Jules Pieri. Her last name is spelled Pieri. The resources in this book are incredible, and I believe the website for the book to learn more about what's in there and more about Jules's, the website is howwemakestuffnow.com. Is that correct, Jules?
Yes, and when I get off this interview, I'm going to go and add Jay Kelly's Build Your Dream Network to Chapter 3.
Wow, unbelievable.
No, seriously, that is one of the most important skills of a maker is, you know, let's just start from the assumption that they don't know much. And in fact, it's factual because only 10% of our makers have any experience in the product area where they're working. So it might be a dentist creating a toy or a teacher creating a medical device. I mean, these are real stories. And the first thing and the most important thing they need to learn how to do if they don't have one already is build a network, right? You don't have to be the person who understands how to do all this stuff, but you have to be able to get to the people who do. And that is a discipline and sort of a set of practices that not everyone has needed in their careers. And it's something you need to learn like anything else.
Kelly, more to add.
I'm going to jump in because I know I hit chapter 3 of your book, Jules, and you know I want to say I'm going to read from page 21. You say before you start asking anyone for anything, you need to do some basic research from the comfort of your own couch or chair. You like it's highlighted. You had me cheering, but you know I want to flip over to page 23. I also love that you really stress the importance of LinkedIn. Talk about that in terms of, I think people think of LinkedIn like for professional, like I need a job, but talk about how makers should be using it.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, just back up a little. I competed directly with LinkedIn before the Grommet. I was president of a company that was also trying to be the professional social network. It was called Ziggs and sold to Reputation.com. So I've known this space since before the Grommet and really respect what LinkedIn has built. And what a maker needs to do is figure out whatever their current issue is, there's likelihood that there's a maker who solved it. So if I were trying to create, say, something in the home goods area, something made out of fabric, I would be looking for companies that have done something that's not directly competitive, but maybe crack some of the same manufacturing or marketing issues. And I'd be looking for the principles of that company on LinkedIn. And in the book, I explain how to approach people because I don't think it's as simple as saying, hey, please, will you talk to me? You need to explain who you are and why. But I would be looking for whatever competencies are represented in the people on LinkedIn that I can get to, ideally through my own connections. So, people who've already built a LinkedIn network probably can get an introduction to many of the people they need. But even if they haven't done that yet, I explain how to get started because that's going to be the base for all of your future success. It sounds like I'm exaggerating, but whenever I'm doing something new at the Grommet, which happens all the time, I almost always start on LinkedIn. Like, who know? Like, why do I have to? I'm pulling a page out of the Steve Jobs book. He was apparently famous for this. Like, why do I have to know all this stuff? I'll go find somebody who does, and that's what LinkedIn's great for.
Yeah, well, you're singing to the choir here with Kelly and Marty, because we both deal with early stage companies and early early adopters, if you will, or people who are starting their businesses. So this is great stuff. Back to the book, or just as a general comment, give me maybe one or two of the top challenges. We mentioned a couple already. Maybe they weren't prepared to begin with, but maybe mention a couple other ones. Like, I have some ideas, but you tell me some of the top challenges that you hear every day.
I would say I'm going to jump to the advanced class of things that even if people, don't read the book, I would want them to know, because these are, like you said, top challenges. First of all, I think it's super important to make sure you have a big target market, that you're not solving a problem for a very small population or a small potential customer base. And the one place I see that an awful lot is with new parents. When you have you're taking your children and raising them through different life stages, there's always this hair on fire problem happening that quite often a product could help with. And the parent will search and find that there's no solution. And they're absolutely right. There could be a great product solution, but here's the problem. Quite often those problems last about a month. Mm-hmm. And by the time somebody starts even thinking they want some solution to it, the problem's already starting to evaporate. So the idea for the product may be brilliant, but getting at that market could be tough. It's just not an enduring enough situation or repetitive enough situation. So that's an example of make sure it's a big enough target market so you don't have to be a genius and get everything right, perfectly right out of the gate. Secondly, I would go to great lengths to protect my intellectual property up front. And by that, I mean protect your company name, the trademark of your name, securing the URL for your company, securing any patents that are possible, which is a much bigger climb than a trademark or a logo protection. But anything that is protectable, I would protect. And I do refer to a book. There's a chapter on this in the book, but I also refer to a book that's helpful to this in my website and in the book as well. And the reason you do that is because the world's changed a lot in the last 5 years, because especially on Amazon,
right,
the influence or the infiltration of Chinese manufacturers who knock you off is terrifying.
I'm glad you mentioned Amazon, because you warn in the book about rushing into selling your product on Amazon. You make that point very strongly, and the word counterfeiting I have in my notes. You open yourself up for some of these kinds of things. So that's value, even if they don't read the book. They should read the book, but there's value right there. Don't be so quick with the Amazon, right?
Yeah, I would say it has a role, and sometimes it's a very important role. But I would not. I think what I find is that all of us have very positive consumer experiences on Amazon for the most part. What's not to like? Great service, and prices are generally fair, and great variety of products. But what they don't realize is how many of those products are indeed counterfeit, and how much Amazon is inclined to knock you off with their private label businesses. It's unprecedented in the world to have a platform like that also attack its customers, its sellers. So
it's wild.
It's a unique entity. And again, I have mad respect for the company and for Jeff Bezos. He may be the most brilliant business person ever born, but he's not necessarily a friend of small business, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, again, my guest is Jules Pieri, Pieri. Her company is The Grommet, and that is thegrommet.com. To learn more about the book and all the resources, go to How We Make Stuff Now. I want two more questions for you to kind of start wrapping up. Tell me about citizen commerce. What's that about?
So this is a very mission-driven business, and I believe that business over and above government or nonprofits or educational institution has the speed and resources to form the world we live in. And citizen commerce is a way of sort of describing how we as individual people can influence that. And we do that every single day when we share a business, or we purchase their services or their products, or we walk down the street to support a local retailer, or we are a backer on an Indiegogo campaign. We're putting a vote in for a company or a retailer or a service that we think supports, what we want to see happening in the world. It serves a need, or it's a company with values that we appreciate. And the ability to do that now is way more powerful than it ever was.
Absolutely.
First of all, more transparency about companies, like who's behind them and what they stand for. And I believe that if all of us just took 10% of our disposable income and directed it more thoughtfully to those companies, there are products that we buy or services we need that we don't get a lot of choice. We have to go to the cable companies potentially, or we probably have to buy an automobile from a very large company that isn't behaving, in all the ways we love. But if you're buying something, whether it's anything from food to gifts to home decor to clothing, things where you have a huge variety of companies of all sizes and stripes, that's where you can be really thoughtful, and it's incredibly powerful.
And I'll give a free commercial. Go to the Grommet.com and look for those products. One last question before we wrap up. I've been waiting to ask this one. You partnered with Ace Hardware. What drove that decision, and how's it working out?
Great. So they were a customer because we have a wholesale side of our business where we help these companies continue to scale and grow. And Ace became a customer, buying products, ultimately putting 250 Grommet branded displays in their stores. They have 5,000 stores. And it was successful. The kind of customers who came in and the halo effect on the stores was brilliant. Mm-hmm. So they made an investment. I had a prior strategic investor, like a large company that had invested in company, and they bought their stock. And so we've expanded what I described before. And Ace is like so heartfelt. Like, these are all locally owned stores.
Great organization. Yeah.
So they're, you couldn't match our missions more closely.
No, if you drew this up back in 2008, you may not have been able to plan it any better. So our guest has been Jules Pieri, Pieri. Her company, she's the co-founder of, is thegrommet.com. To learn more about the book and all the resources there, go to How We Make Stuff Now. I don't want to leave without asking Kelly Hoey. Any last comments or questions, Kelly?
I want to say a comment on mission driven. One of the things I always say is, invest in the change you want to see in the world. And I think people forget that every day with their pocketbook, they have the chance to make, a significant amount of change. So thank you for being mission driven, and thank you for getting so many incredible products on the market.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Jules, thanks so much for being part of the Business Builders Show. It's been a real treat. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to the Business Builders Show. To learn more about me, and I'm Marty Wolf, go to MartyWolfBusinessSolutions.com. That's MartyWolfBusinessSolutions.com. To learn more about Kelly Hoey, go to her website, which is jkellyhoey.co. That's jkellyhoey.co. And of course, you can find Kelly and Marty on LinkedIn and Twitter. A reminder, you can find all our Business Builders shows on iTunes, Spotify, and on your favorite podcast app.
Bringing the business classroom to you. It's the Business Builders Show with Marty Wolf.